To save her mother, she agrees to a cold and calculated marriage with a mysterious millionaire. The millionaire who promised her protection turns out to be a prisoner of his own demons. Now facing an impending collapse, she must decide whether to be a victim of the story or the author of change. If this story caught your interest, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. The fluorescent lights of Boston Memorial Hospital hummed overhead as Riley Bennett slumped against the wall outside the intensive care unit. Her 26-year-old shoulders carried the weight of a woman twice her age. 3 jobs, endless medical bills, and a mother whose lungs were failing. This had been her life for the past 2 years. "Miss Bennett." The doctor's voice pulled her from thoughts of unpaid rent and maxed-out credit cards. "Your mother's condition is deteriorating faster than we anticipated." "The experimental treatment we discussed." He hesitated, adjusting his glasses. "It's her only option now." Riley nodded mechanically. She had memorized the cost, $350,000 for the full treatment protocol, an impossible sum. "I understand," she whispered, though she didn't. Understand would mean accepting that her mother, the woman who had raised her alone after her father disappeared, who had worked 3 jobs to put Riley through community college, would be gone by Christmas. "I'm very sorry." The doctor squeezed her shoulder and walked away, his white coat disappearing around the corner. Riley entered the room where her mother lay connected to machines that beeped in steady rhythm. Margaret Bennett's once vibrant face had grown gaunt, her cheekbones sharp beneath papery skin. "Hey, Mom," Riley forced a smile. "Dr. Phillips says you're being stubborn again." Margaret's eyes fluttered open. "Always was, my best quality." Her breathing was labored, each word a struggle. "Promise me, you'll live your life now when I'm gone." "Stop it." Riley took her mother's hand. "The experimental treatment. We both know. We can't afford it." Margaret squeezed her daughter's fingers with surprising strength. "I've made peace with what's coming." Riley couldn't accept it. Wouldn't. She kissed her mother's forehead and whispered, "Rest now. I'll be back tonight after my shift." Outside, autumn leaves skittered across the hospital parking lot as Riley made her way to her rusty Honda Civic. Her phone buzzed, a reminder for her evening shift at Harrington's, an upscale restaurant where she waited tables. Before that, she had 4 hours at the bookstore, and after night classes in business administration, sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. The Richardson bookstore was quiet that afternoon. Riley shelved novels about lives far more exciting than her own when the bell above the door jingled. A man entered, tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never worried about money. "Can I help?" "You find something?" Riley asked automatically. He studied her with piercing blue eyes. "Perhaps," he said, his voice deep and measured. "I'm looking for The Art of Negotiation." Riley led him to the business section. "Are you a collector? This first edition just came in yesterday." She reached for the book. "I know," I called ahead. He watched her movements with unsettling intensity. "You're Riley Bennett." It wasn't a question. Riley took an instinctive step back. "How do you know my name?" "I make it my business to know things." He extended a business card. "Nathan Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Enterprises." The name triggered recognition. Blackwood Enterprises, a technology empire headquartered in Boston, valued at billions. She'd served champagne at one of their corporate events last year. "Your mother is Margaret Bennett, currently at Boston Memorial with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, stage 4. His tone was clinical, detached. "She needs the Freeman protocol treatment. Experimental, not covered by insurance." Riley's hand trembled. As she took the card, "Why are you—" "I have a proposition for you, Miss Bennett." Nathan Blackwood glanced around the empty bookstore. "Not here. Come to my office tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. He slid a sealed envelope across the counter. "The address is inside. Don't be late." Before she could respond, he turned and left, the bell jingling in his wake. Riley stood frozen, the envelope heavy in her hand. Her phone buzzed again. Time to leave for Harrington's. She slipped the envelope into her bag and rushed out. That night, after her shift ended at 11 p.m., Riley sat on her threadbare couch in the tiny studio apartment she could barely afford. The envelope contained a simple address card and a check for $5,000 made out to her. "What the hell?" she whispered to the empty room. She Googled Nathan Blackwood. Articles about his business acumen filled the screen, alongside photos of him at galas and corporate events. 42 years old, never married, known for ruthless business strategies and philanthropy in equal measure. His face revealed nothing, a perfect mask of control. The next morning, Riley stood outside the gleaming Blackwood Tower, her reflection distorted in its glass surface. She had chosen her best outfit, a simple navy dress she wore for job interviews, but still felt hopelessly underdressed among the sleek professionals entering the building. The receptionist escorted her directly to the top floor. Nathan Blackwood's office was minimalist, floor to ceiling, windows offering a panoramic view of Boston Harbor. He stood when she entered, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "You're punctual, good." He studied her as if evaluating merchandise. "Did you cash the check?" "No," Riley said. "I don't take money without knowing what it's for." A flicker of what might have been approval crossed his face. "Your mother has approximately 3 months to live without the Freeman protocol. With it, her chances improve to 60% recovery." Riley's heart hammered against her ribs. "How do you know all this?" "I sit on the hospital board." Nathan steepled his fingers. "I can ensure your mother receives the treatment immediately. Full coverage, best doctor's private room." "Why would you do that?" Riley's voice caught. Hope was dangerous. She'd learned that lesson through years of disappointment. "Because I need something only you can provide." Nathan rose and walked to the window. "I need a wife." Riley nearly laughed until she saw his expression. He was deadly serious. "A wife," she repeated. "You're asking me to marry you? A complete stranger?" "A contractual arrangement," he clarified. 1 year of marriage. You'll live in my home, accompany me to events, maintain the appearance of a devoted spouse. In exchange, your mother receives the treatment. All expenses covered, plus a stipend of $10,000 monthly for your personal use. Riley felt dizzy. This is insane. It's business. Nathan returned to his desk, opening a folder. "The contract is comprehensive. You'll have complete privacy in your suite. I won't touch you without consent. When the year ends, we divorce quietly, and you receive a final payment of $500,000. Why me? Why not someone with social connections? Someone from your world? Something flickered in his eyes, pain perhaps, or memory. Because you have no connections, no social media presence, no ambitious family seeking advancement, and most importantly, because you need this enough to be discreet. Riley stood, anger breaking through her shock. You think I'm desperate enough to sell myself? I think you're desperate enough to save your mother. His voice softened fractionally, as anyone would be. The silence stretched between them. Outside, seagulls wheeled above the harbor. Riley thought of her mother, growing weaker each day. When would the treatment start? She asked finally. Today, the moment you sign. Riley closed her eyes. When she opened them, Nathan Blackwood was watching her with that same clinical detachment. 1 year, she said, and my mother gets the best care possible. Nathan nodded once. You'll move in tomorrow. My driver will collect you at noon. He slid the contract across the desk. My lawyer will arrive shortly to witness your signature. As Riley picked up the pen, her hand no longer trembled. This was survival. For her mother. For herself. One question, she said, pen poised above paper. Why marriage? Why not just hire me as an assistant or something less extreme? For the first time, Nathan Blackwood looked away, a muscle tightening in his jaw. Because marriage is the only arrangement that cannot be easily questioned or broken. His eyes met hers again, cold and resolute. Sign the contract, Miss Bennett. Your mother's treatment begins in 3 hours. Riley signed, feeling as though she'd just stepped off a cliff. The lawyer appeared moments later, notarizing the document. without a flicker of surprise. "Welcome to the family, Mrs. Blackwood," Nathan said, no warmth in his voice. "I suggest you use today to prepare your mother for the news. The media will be informed of our whirlwind romance by tonight." As Riley left Blackwood Tower, contract copy in hand, her phone buzzed with a notification, an email from Boston Memorial. Margaret Bennett had been moved to a private suite. The Freeman Protocol would commence at 2 p.m. It was real. She had just agreed to become the wife of a man who looked at her like she was a solution to a problem, nothing more. Riley squared her shoulders and headed toward the hospital. 1 year of her life in exchange for her mother's future. 1 year in a gilded cage. She could survive anything for a year. Couldn't she? The wrought iron gates of the Blackwood estate parted silently as the sleek black Bentley carrying Riley approached. She pressed her forehead against the cool window, taking in the sprawling property. 5 acres of manicured gardens surrounding a stone mansion that looked like it belonged in another century. 1 month into her contractual marriage, and Riley still felt like an intruder. The driver, Thomas, a silver-haired man with kind eyes and practiced discretion, glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Mr. Blackwood is expecting you in the main study, Mrs. Blackwood." Riley winced at the name. "Thank you, Thomas. And please, when it's just us, call me Riley." He nodded with a small smile. "Of course, Miss Riley." The car stopped at the main entrance where Mrs. Winters, the housekeeper, waited. A stern woman in her 60s with perfect posture and watchful eyes, she managed the household with military precision. "Your mother's latest test results arrived," Mrs. Winters said without preamble, handing Riley a sealed envelope. "And Mr. Blackwood requests your presence immediately." Riley clutched the envelope, heart racing. Every week brought new results, new hope. The Freeman Protocol was working, slowly but working. Her mother had been moved to a private rehabilitation facility 2 weeks ago. Her breathing improved enough to reduce oxygen support. "Thank you," Riley said, slipping the envelope into her designer handbag, one of dozens Nathan had ordered for her. Her entire wardrobe had been replaced within days of signing the contract. Every item perfectly tailored, elegantly understated. The kind of clothes that whispered wealth rather than shouted it. The mansion's interior was a study in calculated perfection, antique furniture, priceless art, and not a single personal photograph. Riley's heels clicked on marble floors as she made her way to Nathan's study, passing security cameras discreetly installed in corners. She'd counted 23 cameras throughout the house so far. Nathan stood at the window when she entered, his back to her. The evening sun cast his silhouette in sharp relief. "You visited the Danvers Art Foundation opening without informing me," he said without turning around. Riley stiffened. "I didn't realize I needed permission for approved charity events. It was on the list your secretary provided." "You spoke with James Harrington for 17 minutes. Now he turned, eyes cool. "He's a journalist, not a patron." A chill ran through her. "You had me followed?" "I had you protected." Nathan moved to his desk, opening a file. "Harrington specializes in exposés. He's been investigating my company." "For months." "He talked about art, Nathan, Renaissance sculptures and the Foundation's education program." Riley crossed her arms. "Nothing about you or Blackwood Enterprises." This time, Nathan handed her a newspaper clipping. 2 years ago, he destroyed Senator Mitchell's career with a series of articles about his private life. Mitchell's wife provided the information. Riley scanned the article, a scandal involving misappropriated campaign funds and a secret apartment. "You think I would? I think everyone has a price." Nathan's voice was matter-of-fact. "Yours was your mother's treatment. What will Harrington offer you?" The casual cruelty of his assumption stung. "I signed a contract. I keep my word." Something shifted in Nathan's expression. "Yes, I believe you do." He closed the file. "Nevertheless, James Harrington is now on the restricted list. If he approaches you again, you'll excuse yourself immediately." Riley wanted to argue, but thought of her mother growing stronger each day because of the treatment Nathan provided. "Fine." Nathan nodded once, returning to business. "We have the Blackwood Foundation Gala this Saturday. My PR team has arranged..." For Vanity Fair to do a feature on our whirlwind romance. The reporter arrives tomorrow for an interview and home tour. What exactly am I supposed to tell them about how we met? Riley asked. You'll find a detailed background story in this folder. He slid a blue folder across the desk. Study it tonight. We met at a hospital charity event 6 months ago. Private. Courtship. Married quickly when we realized what we had found in each other. Riley took the folder. And what exactly did we find? Nathan's eyes met hers. A second chance. Before she could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and stood. Board meeting. We'll continue this discussion at dinner. He paused at the door. The East Wing remains off limits. Mrs. Winters informed me you've been asking questions about it. Heat rushed to Riley's cheeks. It's where I live. I'm curious about the locked rooms. Curiosity isn't part of our arrangement. His tone was final as he left. Riley stood alone in the study, frustration building. She'd traded her freedom for her mother's life, but the constant surveillance and Nathan's cold control were suffocating. She moved to the window, watching gardeners tend to immaculate rose bushes below. Her phone chimed with a text from Sarah, the nurse assigned to her mother. Another good day. Physical therapy going well. She's asking for you. A smile touched Riley's lips. The contract allowed her 3 visits per week to the rehabilitation center. Tomorrow was visit day. In her suite, a luxurious apartment within the mansion's modern West Wing, Riley changed into comfortable clothes and opened her laptop. The search history had been cleared again. Every night, no matter what she searched, by morning, it would be gone. Another reminder that privacy was an illusion here. She opened the blue folder and studied the fabricated love story. According to this narrative, Nathan had been captivated by her passion for hospital fundraising. They'd shared midnight conversations about art and literature. He'd proposed on his yacht during a sunrise over the Atlantic. What a crock, she muttered, tossing the folder aside. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Mrs. Winters stood at the door, her expression unreadable as always. Dinner is served in the main dining room, she announced. Mr. Blackwood asks that you wear the blue dress. The Congresswoman and her husband will be joining you. Politics. Another command performance. Riley nodded. Thank you, Mrs. Winters. The housekeeper hesitated, then stepped inside, closing the door partially. Miss Riley, she said, her voice lower, be careful what you look for in this house. Riley froze. What do you mean? Some questions are better left unasked. Mrs. Winters glanced at the security camera in the corner. Especially about the East Wing. Or about Eliza. Eliza, Riley repeated. Who's Eliza? But Mrs. Winters was already retreating. 20 minutes until dinner, Mrs. Blackwood. The blue dress, a sapphire silk creation that cost more than Riley's old apartment, hung in her closet with the tags still attached. As she dressed, her mind raced. Who was Eliza? Why had Mrs. Winters risked warning her? Dinner with the Congresswoman and her husband was an exercise in careful conversation and political navigation. Nathan played the role of devoted husband, flawlessly, his hand occasionally covering Riley's, his eyes warming when he looked at her. To anyone watching, they were deeply in love. You two make marriage look effortless, Congresswoman Walsh said, smiling. How refreshing in these cynical times. Riley makes it easy, Nathan replied smoothly. She reminded me what truly matters in life. Later, as they bid goodbye to their guests, Nathan's mask slipped back into place. The warmth vanished from his eyes. You did well, he said, already checking his phone. The reporter arrives at 10 tomorrow. Wear the cream suit from Chanel. Another command, another performance. Nathan, Riley said as he turned to leave, who is Eliza? He went completely still, his back to her. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Where did you hear that name? His voice was dangerously quiet. I overheard the stuff, Riley lied, protecting Mrs. Winters. Nathan turned slowly. For the first time she saw raw emotion on his face. Pain, anger, something bordering on fear. Eliza is not your concern. Each word precise, controlled. Do not mention that name again. Ever. He walked away, leaving Riley in the echoing foyer. Whatever she'd stumbled upon, it was the first crack in Nathan's perfect facade. The next morning, after a restless night, Riley sat in the garden waiting for her driver. The interview with Vanity Fair had gone exactly as Nathan planned, a perfect story of unexpected love and domestic bliss. The reporter had been charmed by the mansion, by Nathan's calculated displays of affection, by the carefully curated photos of their courtship that his PR team had created using Photoshop and stand-ins. Thomas pulled up in a less conspicuous Audi rather than the Bentley, Nathan's concession to Riley's discomfort with arriving at the rehabilitation center in ostentatious vehicles. "To Pine Grove, Miss Riley?" Thomas asked as she settled into the back seat. "Yes, please. And then I'd like to stop by my old apartment building. I need to pick up the last of my things." Thomas nodded, pulling away from the mansion. Riley watched it recede in the side mirror, feeling the invisible tethers loosen with each mile. Pine Grove Rehabilitation Center gleamed in the October sunlight, its modern facilities and extensive gardens making it look more like a luxury spa than a medical facility. Riley signed in at reception, where the staff greeted her by name. Everyone knew who she was now, the formerly unknown woman who had captured Nathan Blackwood's heart. Her mother sat in a sunroom, color in her cheeks for the first time in months. When she saw Riley, Margaret's face lit up. "There's my girl." She stood without help, a new development that made Riley's heart soar. "Mom!" Riley embraced her gently. "You're standing!" "Walking too," Margaret said proudly. "Around the gardens twice yesterday. The physical therapist says I'm exceeding expectations." They spent an hour talking about Margaret's progress, carefully avoiding the subject of Riley's new life. Her mother knew about the marriage. A whirlwind romance was the official story, but Riley had never revealed the contractual nature of the relationship. That burden was hers alone to bear. As Riley prepared to leave, Margaret took her hand. "You seem different, honey. Is everything okay with Nathan?" Riley forced a smile. "Everything's fine. He's just very private. It's an adjustment." Margaret studied her daughter's face. "I may be recovering, but my instincts still work. You're not happy." "I'm happy you're getting better," Riley deflected. "That's what matters." Her mother's grip tightened. "You matter too, Riley. Don't lose yourself in someone else's life. Promise me." The words hit too close to home. Riley kissed her mother's cheek. "I promise. I'm still me." But as she walked back to the car, Riley wondered if that was true. The Riley who had existed before the contract, exhausted, desperate but authentic, was disappearing beneath designer clothes and practiced smiles. Thomas drove her to her old apartment building in silence. The familiar brick structure looked shabbier than she remembered. Riley asked Thomas to wait, while she used her key to enter the building. Her studio apartment had been paid up through the month, though she'd removed most of her belongings weeks ago. All that remained were a few books, winter clothes, and personal mementos she hadn't had the heart to sort through during the rushed move. As she packed the last items into a box, a knock at the door startled her. Thomas wouldn't have left the car. Riley opened the door cautiously. A woman in her early 30s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor stood in the hallway. Riley Bennett? Or should I say, Riley Blackwood? The woman held up a press credential. "Lisa Chen, Boston investigator. I've been trying to reach you." Riley began to close the door. "I'm not doing interviews." Lisa stuck her foot in the doorway. "I'm not here for a puff piece. I'm investigating Nathan Blackwood and his pattern of contractual marriages." Riley's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" "You're not the first, Riley." Lisa's voice lowered. "There was Eliza Donovan before you, and Catherine Walsh before her. I think there were others." Eliza. There it was again. "You need to leave," Riley insisted, pushing against the door. "Check the east wing," Lisa said quickly, sensing her window closing. "Find the room with the silver door handle. Look for Eliza's journals." She slipped a business card through the narrowing gap. "When you're ready to talk, call me. For your own safety." Riley slammed the door shut, heart pounding. She leaned against it, Lisa's words echoing in her mind. Pattern of contractual marriages. Others before her. The drive back to the mansion was a blur. Thomas noticed her distraction but asked no questions. As they passed through the gates, Riley glimpsed a figure watching from an east wing window, a woman with long dark hair who vanished when Riley looked directly at her. That night, while Nathan attended a business dinner downtown, Riley stood before the locked door that separated the west and east wings. The security keypad gleamed in the dim light. On impulse, she tried the date from the fabricated backstory, the day Nathan claimed they had met. The light flashed green. The door unlocked with a soft click. Heart racing, Riley stepped into the forbidden east wing, searching for a room with a silver door handle and answers about the woman named Eliza. The east wing corridors were eerily silent, moonlight filtering through tall windows onto parquet floors that creaked beneath Riley's cautious steps. Unlike the west wing's modern luxury, this part of the mansion retained its 19th century character. Ornate moldings, faded damask wallpaper, and portraits of stern-faced Blackwood ancestors watching her intrusion. Riley's phone flashlight illuminated door handles as she moved, brass, bronze, tarnished copper, but no silver. The corridor seemed endless, branching into smaller hallways and alcoves. Time lost meaning as she searched, jumping at every creak and settling pipe. Finally, at the end of the third hallway, a door with a polished silver handle gleamed in her flashlight beam. Riley's hand trembled as she reached for it. Locked. Of course it would be locked. She knelt, examining the keyhole, an old-fashioned lock, not electronic like the others. Riley slipped a credit card from her pocket, a trick she'd learned during her college years when her roommate frequently locked herself out, and wiggled it between the door and frame. The lock clicked. The door swung inward. Riley stepped into darkness, her flashlight revealing a bedroom frozen in time, a four-poster bed with silk sheets, a vanity table with perfume bottles arranged in perfect symmetry, fresh flowers in a crystal vase, everything immaculate, as if waiting for someone to return. On the bedside table sat a framed photograph that made Riley's breath catch. Nathan, years younger, smiling genuinely with his arm around a woman with flowing dark hair and striking green eyes. They stood on a yacht, the ocean stretching behind them. The woman wore a diamond ring that caught the sunlight. Eliza Donovan. It had to be. Riley opened the vanity drawer, finding a leather-bound journal embossed with the initials ED. Her conscience protested. This was someone's private life, but Lisa Chen's warning echoed in her mind. For your own safety. She opened the journal, breath shallow as she began to read. October 17, 2016. Nathan and I signed the papers today. 1 year as Mrs. Blackwood in exchange for funding the Institute's research. A business arrangement, he keeps saying, but I caught him watching me during dinner. There's something in his eyes. Loneliness, perhaps. The mansion is beautiful but cold, like its owner. Riley flipped forward several pages. December 5th, 2016. The rules are suffocating. No friendships outside approved circles, no conversations with journalists. Security monitoring everything. I confronted Nathan about the cameras in my bathroom. He had them removed at least. Small victories. The foundation funding came through today, though. $5 million for spinal cord research. Worth the golden handcuffs, I keep telling myself. More pages, the handwriting growing more agitated. February 20th, 2017. And discovered I'd been meeting with Dr. Sanders outside scheduled hours. Accused me of leaking company information. Ridiculous. Sanders is my colleague, my mentor. The research is making breakthroughs because of our collaboration. Nathan doesn't understand scientific process or trust. The walls are closing in. Riley's heart pounded as she turned to entries from later months. May 12th, 2017. I think I'm falling in love with him. Insanity. Stockholm Syndrome? He took me sailing yesterday. No security, no pretense. Just us. He told me about his childhood, the neglect, his father's cruelty. For once I saw beyond the billionaire facade. There's a wounded soul beneath the armor. When he kissed me, it wasn't part of any contract. The entries continued, documenting a relationship evolving from business arrangement to genuine connection. Eliza wrote about Nathan's nightmares, his fear of abandonment, his obsessive need for control born from childhood trauma. Then, the tone shifted dramatically. August 3, 2017. N found the research papers. Accused me of industrial espionage. The clinical trial data doesn't show what Blackwood Pharmaceuticals claimed. The drug has severe side effects they've concealed. I tried to explain I was protecting him, protecting the company from scandal. He wouldn't listen, called me a spy, a traitor. Said I'd weaponized his trust. I've never seen such rage, such hurt. The final entry was scrawled in shaky handwriting. August 10, 2017. He's locked me in. Says it's for my protection, while the lawyers handle damage control. No phone. Internet restricted. The research must reach the FDA, but I can't get it out. If anything happens to me, the evidence is in the blue flash drive hidden in the astronomy book on the third shelf. Nathan isn't evil. He's terrified. Of betrayal. Of scandal. Of becoming his father. I still love him. God help me, but I can't live in this prison any longer. Tonight, I'm getting out. The journal ended abruptly. Riley stood frozen, ice coursing through her veins. What had happened to Eliza? Donovan? She moved to the bookshelf, scanning for astronomy books, and spotted a worn copy of Cosmos by Carl Sagan. Her fingers trembled as she pulled it from the shelf. Inside, hollowed pages concealed a small blue flash drive. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. Riley whirled around, heart in her throat. Mrs. Winters stood in the doorway, her face pale in the moonlight. "You shouldn't be here," the housekeeper whispered urgently. "He checks the security cameras every night." "Mrs. Winters," Riley clutched the flash drive. "What happened to Eliza?" The older woman's eyes darted nervously to the corridor. "Put everything back exactly as you found it. Now." "Please," Riley begged. "Lisa Chen said there were others before me. Catherine Walsh." Mrs. Winters flinched at the name. "Lower your voice." She stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. "I've worked for Mr. Blackwood for 20 years. Seen 3 women wear his ring. You're asking questions I can't answer." "Can't or won't," Riley challenged. Mrs. Winters' stern facade cracked slightly. "Both, for your safety and mine." She glanced at the flash drive in Riley's hand. "That contains corporate information that could destroy Blackwood Enterprises." "And what about Eliza? Did it destroy her too?" Pain flashed across the housekeeper's face. "Put it back, Mrs. Blackwood. Forget. This room exists. My name is Riley," she said firmly, "and I need to know what I've gotten myself into, please." A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Mrs. Winters sighed. "Not here, not now. The garden shed tomorrow at 2 p.m. Mr. Blackwood has meetings all afternoon." She moved to the door. "Leave everything exactly as you found it." After Mrs. Winters left, Riley reluctantly returned the flash drive to its hiding place. She took photos of several journal entries with her phone, then carefully replaced the journal in the drawer. As she closed the bedroom door behind her, questions swirled in her mind. Had Nathan imprisoned Eliza? Was she still alive? What was on that flash drive? The West Wing felt sterile and artificial after the haunted authenticity of Eliza's room. Riley slipped into her suite, checking the time, 1:30 a.m. Nathan would be home soon from his business dinner. She quickly changed into nightwear and removed her makeup, erasing evidence of her expedition. She lay awake in the dark, mind racing. The contract that had seemed coldly straightforward now felt dangerously complex. Nathan wasn't just a controlling businessman. He was something more unpredictable, something more damaged. Morning brought a flurry of activity. Nathan had scheduled a photo shoot for Boston Elite magazine, another piece of their fabricated love story. Riley smiled for cameras, laughed on cue, and allowed Nathan to kiss her temple for the photographer, while her skin crawled with new awareness. "You seem distracted," Nathan murmured as the photographer adjusted lighting. "Just tired," Riley replied. "Trouble sleeping." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Perhaps Dr. Reynolds should adjust your sleep medication." A chill ran through her. You've been monitoring my prescriptions? I monitor everything concerning your health and safety. His tone made it clear this was normal to him. The contract stipulates comprehensive medical care. Before she could respond, the photographer called for one final pose on the grand staircase. Nathan's arm slid around her waist, his body warm against hers. To the observer, they were the perfect couple. He, protective and adoring. She, serene and content. If only they could see her heart hammering with fear. The photo shoot ended at noon. Nathan departed for his meetings downtown, and Riley counted the minutes until her garden shed meeting with Mrs. Winters. At 1:45, she slipped out a side door, telling the security guard she needed fresh air. The garden shed stood at the edge of the rose garden, a stone structure partially covered with ivy. Riley entered cautiously, finding Mrs. Winters already waiting, her usually impeccable posture now tense with anxiety. "We don't have much time," the housekeeper said. "Security sweeps the grounds every 30 minutes. "Tell me about Eliza," Riley insisted, "and Catherine before her." Mrs. Winters clasped her hands tightly. "Catherine Walsh was first 6 years ago. A struggling artist Mr. Blackwood met at a gallery. Their arrangement was similar to yours. 1 year, financial support for her ailing father in exchange for marriage." "What happened to her?" Riley pressed. Mrs. Winters glanced toward the mansion. 6 months in, she fell in love with him, started believing the lie they were presenting to the world. But Nathan couldn't. He doesn't know how to love. Normally, his control became obsession. When she tried to leave before the contract ended, things got ugly. Did he hurt her? Not physically, never that. Mrs. Winters' voice was firm. But emotionally? He isolated her completely, threatened to withdraw her father's medical support. Eventually, she had a breakdown. He had her committed to a private facility. After treatment, she signed a non-disclosure agreement, received a settlement, and disappeared. Last I heard, she was living somewhere in Europe. Riley felt sick. And Eliza? Dr. Eliza Donovan. A flash of genuine affection crossed Mrs. Winters' face. Brilliant neuroscientist. Their arrangement was different. He funded her research institute in exchange for the marriage. But Eliza... The housekeeper smiled sadly. She saw through him, past the walls. For a while I thought she might actually heal him. What went wrong? She discovered Blackwood Pharmaceuticals was hiding data about side effects from a new drug. She was going to expose it, not to hurt Nathan, but to protect patients. He saw it as the ultimate betrayal. Riley recalled the journal entries. Did he imprison her? Mrs. Winters looked away. He called it protective custody, had security watch her constantly, claimed it was for her own safety while his lawyers contained the situation. She lowered her voice further. But one night, she escaped, left everything behind. The official story was that she took a research position overseas, but what? Riley felt cold dread spreading. Through her. No one's heard from her since. 3 years now. Mrs. Winters met Riley's eyes directly. "I don't believe Mr. Blackwood would deliberately harm anyone, but his need for control, for loyalty, it consumes him, destroys what he claims. To protect." "That flash drive," Riley said, "it contains evidence about the pharmaceutical cover-up." "I believe so. After Eliza disappeared, Nathan had the FBI investigate, claiming industrial espionage. They found nothing." Mrs. Winters checked her watch. "You should return to the house." "One more question," Riley said quickly. "The woman with dark hair in the East Wing. I saw her yesterday." Mrs. Winters froze. "That's impossible. No one is allowed there except Mr. Blackwood." "I know what I saw," Riley insisted. The housekeeper's face paled. "Emily Miller, Nathan's personal assistant. She resembles Eliza. Same height, similar features." Understanding dawned on Riley. He hired her because she looks like Eliza. "Leave it alone, Riley," Mrs. Winters pleaded. "For your own sake, fulfill your contract, save your mother, then get as far from Blackwood Mansion as possible." They parted ways, Mrs. Winters heading to the kitchen while Riley took a circuitous path back to the main house. Her mind reeled with revelations. Nathan wasn't just controlling, he was dangerously obsessive, collecting women who fulfilled specific roles, then discarding them when they deviated from his script. As she entered through the solarium, a voice stopped her cold. "Enjoying the gardens, Mrs. Blackwood." Nathan stood by the piano, his expression unreadable. How long had he been watching? "The roses are beautiful," Riley replied, forcing casualness into her voice. "I thought you had meetings all afternoon." The final one was cancelled. He moved toward her, elegant and predatory. "Thomas tells me you visited your old apartment yesterday." Riley maintained eye contact, though her heart pounded. "I had a few personal items to collect." "And did Lisa Chen collect information from you in return?" The floor seemed to tilt beneath Riley's feet. "Who?" "Please don't insult my intelligence." Nathan's voice remained conversational, but his eyes hardened. "My security team observed her entering your building shortly after you arrived." Riley's mouth went dry. "She approached me. I didn't speak with her." Nathan studied her face, searching for deception. "What did she want?" "To interview me about our relationship." I refused. "And that was all?" Riley nodded, the lie bitter on her tongue. Nathan stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne. "Our arrangement works because of trust, Riley. I trust you to fulfill your obligations. You trust me to fulfill mine. Your mother's treatment costs exceed $40,000 weekly. That trust is her lifeline." The threat hung between them, all the more terrifying for being unstated. "I understand," Riley said quietly. "Good." Nathan checked his watch. "The Prescott dinner is at 8. Wear the black Valentino. The governor will be attending." He walked away, leaving Riley trembling. She'd underestimated the extent of his surveillance. If he knew about Lisa Chen, what else did he know? Had he seen her enter the East Wing? Did he know about her conversation with Mrs. Winters? Riley retreated to her suite, locking the door, though she knew it provided no real privacy. She slid her phone from her pocket, opening the photos she'd taken of Eliza's journal. The final entry haunted her. "I still love him, God help me, but I can't live in this prison any longer. Tonight I'm getting out." What had happened to Eliza Donovan after she wrote those words? The answer might determine Riley's own fate. Her phone chimed with a message from an unknown number. "What did you find? We need to talk." LC, Lisa Chen. How had she gotten Riley's private number? Riley hesitated, then deleted the message. Nathan was watching too closely. One wrong move could jeopardize everything. Her mother's treatment, perhaps her own freedom. As she prepared for the evening's political dinner, putting on the black Valentino gown Nathan had specified, Riley caught her reflection in the mirror. Perfectly styled hair, designer dress, flawless makeup, a paper doll version of herself. How long before this facade became a prison she couldn't escape? The woman in the mirror stared back with determined eyes. 6 more months of contract remained. She needed to be strategic, careful. The flash drive in Eliza's room might provide leverage or protection, but retrieving it would be dangerous. Riley applied her lipstick, a shade called Power Play. Tonight, she would smile and charm the governor, play the devoted wife, but underneath she would be planning. Nathan might own her time for now, but he would never own her soul. 3 months later, snowflakes drifted past the windows of Pine Grove Rehabilitation Center as Riley sat beside her mother, watching her complete a breathing exercise with remarkable ease. Margaret Bennett had defied all medical expectations. Her lung function had improved to 70%, her energy returning. Her future no longer measured in months but years. "Dr. Freeman says I might be able to go home by spring," Margaret said, excitement brightening her eyes. "Not that my little apartment compares to where you're living now." Riley forced a smile. "That's wonderful news, Mom." Margaret tilted, her head, studying her daughter with the intuition that motherhood had sharpened over decades. "You don't look like someone whose mother just got a clean bill of health." "Of course I'm happy," Riley insisted. "It's just work stress." The lie came easily now. Work stress, the convenient explanation for the shadows under her eyes, her weight loss, the constant vigilance that had become second nature. Her mother believed Riley worked for the Blackwood Foundation, managing charitable initiatives alongside her duties as Nathan's wife. The contract dictated this cover story. "Nathan working you too hard?" Margaret asked. "That man needs to remember you're his wife, not just his foundation director." If only that were true. In reality, Nathan had tightened his control after discovering Riley's meeting with Lisa Chen. Her phone and internet access were monitored openly now. Thomas drove her everywhere, reporting her movements. Social engagements were strictly choreographed, with Nathan rarely leaving her side in public. "It's just a busy season," Riley said. "Year-end reports, funding allocations, you know how it is." But Margaret wasn't fooled. "Something's wrong, honey. I haven't seen you smile, really smile, in months." Riley squeezed her mother's hand. "I'm fine, just tired." "Is it Nathan?" Margaret persisted. "Is he hurting you?" "No," Riley answered too quickly. "Nothing like that. He's just intensely private, controlling sometimes, but not abusive. Not physically, at least, but the surveillance, isolation and psychological pressure were taking their toll." Riley lived in constant anxiety, watching every word, every movement. The East Wing remained locked to her after Nathan had upgraded the security system following her first intrusion, an intrusion he never directly acknowledged but clearly knew about. Mrs. Winters had been dismissed 2 weeks after their garden shed conversation. No explanation, no forwarding address. Just gone, replaced by a stone-faced housekeeper who barely spoke to Riley. "You can tell me anything," Margaret said softly. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Tears burned behind Riley's eyes. How she longed to unburden herself, to tell her mother everything, the contract, Eliza's disappearance, her growing fear. But the truth would devastate Margaret, destroy her recovery, and possibly put her in danger. "I promise, Mom, if I needed help, I'd tell you." Another lie in an expanding constellation of deception. After her visit, Riley walked with Thomas to the car, snow crunching beneath her boots. The tall security guard who had been following her for weeks, ostensibly for her protection, maintained a discreet distance. "Mrs. Winters contacted me," Thomas said quietly as he opened the car door. "Wanted me to give you this." He pressed a folded note into her gloved hand. Riley's heart raced as she slipped it into her coat pocket. Thomas had never broken protocol before. His loyalty had always seemed firmly with Nathan. "Thank you," she whispered. Thomas nodded, his eyes meeting hers briefly. Sometimes loyalty means protecting someone from themselves. In the back seat, with the security guard sitting up front beside Thomas, Riley couldn't risk reading the note. She feigned interest in the passing scenery, mind racing with possibilities. Mrs. Winters had found a way to contact her. What could be so urgent? At the mansion, Riley excused herself to her suite, locking the bathroom door, the one place without. Cameras, though she suspected audio monitoring, remained. With shaking fingers, she unfolded the note. "Riley, E is alive, living under new identity in Seattle, protected by journalist J.H. Gos Harrington. Flash drive contains evidence of fraud that could destroy N and send him to prison. E couldn't use it because she still loved him. Don't make a mistake. N knows you've been in the East Wing, plans to move you to island property after contract ends. For your protection, no contact with outside world. Get out now. Chen can help. Use burner phone in bottom of green vase in solarium." Riley sank onto the edge of the bathtub, blood roaring in her ears. Nathan was planning to imprison her after the contract ended, not release her with the promised settlement, but isolate her completely. Why? Because she knew too much. Because she'd seen. Behind his mask, she flushed the note down the toilet, watching until every scrap disappeared. Then she showered, using the noise of running water to mask her quiet sobs of frustration and fear. That night, during a rare dinner alone with Nathan, she studied him across the polished dining table. 6 months of marriage had familiarized her with every facet of his public persona. Charming, brilliant, commanding. But glimpses of the man beneath had become increasingly disturbing. The hospital? Called today, Nathan said, swirling wine in his crystal glass. Your mother's progress continues to exceed expectations. Yes, Riley agreed cautiously. Dr. Freeman thinks she might be released by spring. Nathan nodded thoughtfully. I've arranged for a private apartment for her in Back Bay, full-time. Nursing care, of course. She'll be comfortable there. Riley set down her fork. That's very generous, but unnecessary. Mum's getting better. She'll want her independence back. Independence is overrated, Nathan replied smoothly. Particularly for someone in fragile health. The apartment is secure, monitored. She'll have everything she needs. Monitored. Just like Riley, another way to control her through her mother. Nathan, she said carefully, the contract stipulated treatment for my mother, not permanent management of her life. His eyes hardened slightly. The contract stipulated comprehensive care. I'm fulfilling that obligation. He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. Don't you trust me, Riley? Haven't I provided everything promised? The gesture, meant to seem affectionate, felt like a shackle closing around her wrist. Of course, she lied. I'm grateful for everything you've done. Nathan studied her face, searching for deception. The Aspen retreat is next weekend. The board members and their wives will expect us to be the perfect hosts. No distractions, no complications. I'll review the guest profiles, Riley promised, playing her role perfectly. Later that night, with Nathan asleep beside her in the king-sized bed they now shared, another recent development he'd instituted. Despite the contract's no intimacy without consent clause, Riley stared at the ceiling, planning her escape. The following day, during Nathan's board meeting, Riley seized her opportunity. With Thomas mysteriously assigned to other duties and a less observant security guard watching her, she slipped into the solarium. Heart pounding, she checked the collection of decorative vases until she found the green one Mrs. Winters had mentioned. Inside, buried beneath dried flowers, was a small burner phone. Riley pocketed it and returned to her suite, hiding the phone in her rarely worn winter boots. That night, she waited until Nathan's breathing deepened into sleep before slipping into the bathroom with the shower running. She dialed the only number programmed into the phone. You're alive, Lisa Chen's voice answered immediately. We were getting worried. I don't have much time, Riley whispered. Nathan's planning to imprison me on his island after the contract ends. We know, Lisa replied. We've been building a case against him for years. Eliza's evidence is the missing piece. The flash drive, Riley murmured. It's still hidden in the East Wing, but I can't access it anymore. We need that drive, Riley. It contains more than just the pharmaceutical fraud, financial records, offshore accounts, evidence of bribery, enough to put Nathan away for decades. Riley closed her eyes. If I help you, what about my mother? Her treatment? Already arranged, Lisa interrupted. Senator Martinez is prepared to guarantee continued care through a special medical fund. No strings attached. Why would a senator help me? Because Blackwood Enterprises bribed government officials to fast-track drug approvals. Martinez wants to clean house before the scandal breaks. Lisa's voice became urgent. We need to move quickly. Our sources say Nathan's accelerating his plans. The island property has been prepared. Security personnel hired. Fear coursed through Riley. What do you need me to do? Get the flash drive. We'll handle the rest. There's a charity gala at the Whitmore Hotel this Friday. Nathan always attends. Our people will create a diversion. That's your window to access the East Wing, Riley agreed, memorizing the details before destroying the phone. As she slipped back into bed, Nathan stirred. Everything all right? He murmured, eyes still closed. Just needed water, Riley whispered, her heart thundering so loudly she was certain he could hear it. The next 3 days passed in excruciating slowness. Riley played her role flawlessly, the devoted wife, the grateful beneficiary of Nathan's generosity. She attended charity meetings, approved foundation grants, selected wines for the Aspen retreat, all while counting the hours, until Friday's gala. On Thursday evening, Nathan surprised her with a gift, a diamond necklace that matched Eliza's in the photograph Riley had seen. For tomorrow's gala, he said, fastening it around her neck, his fingers lingering on her skin. You deserve beautiful things, Riley. She met his eyes in the mirror. Thank you, it's exquisite. You've exceeded every expectation, Nathan continued, his hands resting on her shoulders. So different from the others. Loyal, discreet. I've been considering an extension of our arrangement. Riley's blood ran cold. Extension? Another year, he clarified. Same terms, doubled compensation. Your mother's care would continue, of course. Another year of imprisonment. Another year of surveillance and control. I'm flattered. She managed. Can I think about it? Nathan's fingers tightened slightly on her shoulders. Of course, we have time to discuss details. He kissed the top of her head in a gesture of possession rather than affection. After Aspen. The next evening, Riley descended the mansion's grand staircase in a midnight blue gown, diamonds at her throat. Nathan waited below, handsome in his tuxedo, watching her with that familiar mix of appreciation and assessment. Tonight would determine everything. Her freedom, her mother's future, perhaps even justice for Eliza and Catherine. The Whitmore Hotel ballroom glittered with Boston's elite. Riley smiled and charmed, playing the perfect corporate wife while her mind raced with contingency plans. Lisa had promised a diversion at precisely 9:30 p.m. Riley would have maybe 15 minutes to return to the mansion, retrieve the flash, drive from Eliza's room, and rendezvous with Lisa's contact in the garden. At 9:25, Riley excused herself to the ladies' room. Nathan, deep in conversation with the mayor, nodded absently. In the marble bathroom, Riley checked her appearance one last time, steeling herself for what came next. At 9:30, alarms blared throughout the hotel. Security personnel rushed to the IE main entrance where, according to Lisa's plan, a minor fire had been engineered in the kitchen. In the ensuing chaos, Riley slipped out a side exit where Thomas, whose allegiance she now understood, waited with the car. You have 15 minutes, he said, breaking every security protocol. Not a second more. The drive to the mansion took 7 precious minutes. Riley kicked off her heels as she ran inside, using the master code Mrs. Winters had included in her note to access the east wing. The silver-handled door was locked, but the credit card trick worked once again. Eliza's room remained unchanged, frozen in time. Riley went directly to the bookshelf, pulling out the copy of Cosmos. Her hands trembled as she extracted the blue flash drive from its hiding place. As she turned to leave, she glimpsed the framed photo of Nathan and Eliza. On impulse, she grabbed it too, evidence of Nathan's pattern, his obsession. The mansion was eerily quiet as she made her way back toward the garden. According to the plan, Lisa's contact would be waiting by the stone bench near the roses, the same place where Riley had met Mrs. Winters months ago. As she approached the garden doors, a voice froze her in place. Going somewhere, Mrs. Blackwood? Nathan stepped from the shadows, his expression dangerously calm. Behind him stood Emily Miller, the assistant who resembled Eliza, and 2 security guards. Riley's mind raced. How had he known? The gala, the diversion, it should have worked perfectly. You're usually more careful, Nathan said conversationally, moving toward her. But tonight you checked your watch 17 times in 50 minutes, called attention to yourself. Realization dawned. You knew. All along. Did you really think I wouldn't have Lisa Chen investigated after your apartment meeting? That I wouldn't recognize Thomas's divided loyalties? Nathan shook his head. I've built an empire by anticipating betrayal, Riley. Yours was disappointing, but not surprising. Riley clutched the flash drive tightly. You didn't build an empire. You inherited one and maintained it through fraud and manipulation. Just like you manipulated me and Catherine and Eliza before me. At Eliza's name, something flickered in Nathan's eyes. Eliza betrayed me, just as you're betraying me now. She tried to protect you, Riley countered. From a scandal that would have destroyed your company and reputation. She loved you despite everything, and you imprisoned her for it. I protected her, Nathan insisted, his control slipping. From herself, from her naive idealism. The world doesn't reward principles, Riley. It rewards power and control. Is that what you'll tell yourself when you imprison me on your island? That you're protecting me? Nathan's expression hardened. You've been speaking with Lisa Chen, believing her lies. I've seen Eliza's journal, Riley countered. Read her words. I know what happened to Catherine Walsh. I know what you're planning for me after our contract ends. For a moment, genuine surprise crossed Nathan's face. Then his expression smoothed back into calculated control. Give me the flash drive, Riley, now, or your mother's treatment ends tonight. The threat hung between them, brutal in its simplicity. Everything Riley had endured, the surveillance, the control, the loss of identity, had been for her mother's sake. Could she sacrifice that now, even for justice? You think you're the first to face this choice? Nathan asked softly, extending his hand. Catherine chose her father's care over her freedom. Eliza chose to run, and look what it cost her. Her career, her identity, her entire life. Something in his words triggered a realization. You've been tracking Eliza all along. You know where she is. A cold smile. I protect what's mine, Riley. Always. In that moment, the full extent of Nathan's pathology crystallized. He didn't see women as people, but as possessions, to be acquired, controlled, and contained. If she surrendered now, she would never be free. Neither would her mother, perpetually monitored in a luxury apartment. Neither would Eliza, forever looking over her shoulder. Choose wisely, Nathan urged, his hand still extended. Your mother needs just 6 more months of treatment to reach full recovery. Riley looked at the flash drive, then at Nathan's outstretched hand. The choice seemed impossible. Her mother's health or justice for Nathan's victims, past, present, and future. But then she thought of Eliza's final journal entry. I still love him. God help me, but I can't live in this prison any longer. Eliza had chosen freedom, however terrible the cost. Could Riley do any less? I choose both, Riley said firmly, raising her chin. My mother's health and your accountability. Nathan's expression darkened. Impossible. Give me the drive or... What? A new voice interrupted from the doorway. More threats, Nathan? More manipulation? Everyone turned to see Massachusetts Attorney General Diana Reynolds, standing in the doorway, flanked by federal agents. Behind them stood Lisa Chen, recording everything on her phone. Perfect timing, Lisa said, nodding to Riley. We got everything on video, the threats, the admission of tracking Eliza, all of it. Nathan's face contorted with rage. This is a private residence. You have no authority. We have a federal warrant, Reynolds interrupted, based on evidence provided by your former housekeeper, your driver, and others. The testimony was compelling enough for a judge to approve electronic surveillance. She gestured to the ceiling where Riley now realized the usual security cameras had been supplemented or replaced. We've been watching and listening for weeks, Mr. Blackwood. As federal agents moved to detain Nathan, Riley stepped forward, placing the flash drive in Reynolds' hand. This contains evidence of pharmaceutical fraud, she said, and possibly much more. Eliza Donovan compiled it 3 years ago before she disappeared. Reynolds nodded. Ms. Donovan is already on her way to Boston to provide testimony. You promised to protect my mother's treatment, Riley said to Lisa. Already arranged, the journalist confirmed. Senator Martinez made it official this morning. Full coverage, best doctors, no strings attached. Your mother will be fine. Riley. As the agents led Nathan away, he locked eyes with Riley one last time. I gave you everything, he said bitterly. Security, luxury, purpose. I saved your mother's life. No, Riley replied steadily. You tried to buy my life in exchange for hers, but neither of us was for sale, not really. Later that night, as federal agents combed through the mansion collecting evidence, Riley sat in the garden watching the moonlight on the roses. The diamond necklace, Eliza's diamond necklace, lay beside her on the bench. She would return, it to its rightful owner soon. Lisa sat down beside her. What will you do now? Riley considered the question. For months, she had existed in Nathan's carefully constructed reality. Now that prison had crumbled, leaving her free but uncertain. First, I'll make sure my mother's care continues without interruption. Then, she took a deep breath. I want to meet Eliza and Catherine. Help them if I can. And after that, Riley looked up at the stars, feeling truly unburdened for the first time in months. I'll choose my own path, write my own story. The prosecutors will need your testimony, Lisa warned. It won't be easy. Nathan has powerful friends, expensive lawyers. I'm not afraid anymore, Riley said quietly. I found something stronger than fear in that mansion. What's that? Riley smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. The courage to choose myself, to transform rather than escape. As dawn broke over Boston the next morning, Riley stood at her mother's bedside at Pine Grove, having finally told her everything: the contract, Nathan's manipulation, the investigation, and his arrest. Margaret listened, without interruption, tears streaming down her face. I would have refused treatment if I'd known, she whispered, clutching Riley's hand. No mother wants her child to sacrifice herself. It wasn't just for you, Riley admitted. It was for me too. I couldn't lose you. She squeezed her mother's hand. But it's over now. We're both free, and we have a future together. A week later, Riley sat across from Eliza Donovan in a secure location outside Boston. The brilliant neuroscientist now had short blonde hair and wore glasses, but her green eyes remained the same as in the photograph, intelligent, determined, and haunted. I should have come forward sooner, Eliza said, regret heavy in her voice. Maybe then you and Catherine wouldn't have gone through this. You did what you could, Riley assured her, and now together we're going to make sure Nathan can never do this to anyone else. As spring bloomed across Boston, the Blackwood case dominated headlines. Nathan's empire crumbled as the evidence mounted. Pharmaceutical fraud, bribery, witness intimidation, unlawful surveillance. The man who had controlled every aspect of his world now controlled nothing, not even his own freedom. Margaret Bennett moved into a comfortable condo near her daughter, her health improving daily. Riley found work with a legitimate foundation supporting victims of psychological abuse. And slowly, day by day, she reclaimed herself, her identity, her autonomy, her future. On the anniversary of signing Nathan's contract, Riley sat in a courtroom watching as he was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Beside her sat Catherine, Eliza, Mrs. Winters, Thomas, and Lisa, a coalition of survivors and allies who had brought down a predator. As Nathan was led away in handcuffs, he looked back one last time at the women he had tried to possess, but they were no longer his victims. They were witnesses, survivors, agents of change. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed them for statements. Lisa stepped forward first, then Eliza and Catherine. Riley watched them speak their truth with pride and solidarity. One reporter pressed through the crowd toward her. Mrs. Blackwood. My name is Riley Bennett, she corrected firmly, and I'm no one's possession, not anymore. She had chosen not to flee, but to transform. Not just her own life, but the system that had protected men like Nathan Blackwood. It wasn't enough to escape the cage when others remained imprisoned. True freedom meant dismantling the cage itself, so that no one else would suffer as they had. As Riley stepped forward to tell her story, she knew with absolute certainty that she had made the right choice, the hardest one, the brave one, the one that would finally break the cycle of silence. Dear listeners, we hope Riley's journey from prisoner to power has moved you as deeply as it moved us. To continue exploring stories of transformation and courage, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating narratives. Find it by clicking to your left. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day we bring unique stories that explore life's